Fresh out of college, my entire world completely collapsed. Out of nowhere, it turned out I was married and I didn't even damn well know it. To make matters worse, to even file for this ridiculous divorce, I had no choice but to travel all the way to the bleak edges of the military border region. I had been walking for 4 agonizing hours through the scorching desert. I was exhausted, my throat was bone dry, and my temper was completely shot. Getting to this remote hellhole had been pure misery. Just as I felt like giving up, a clear, sharp voice cut through the empty wasteland. "Who are you looking for?" I turned and stared at the woman who had just stepped out of a military vehicle. "I'm looking for Scorching Huan," I rasped, my voice rough from the dust. "Do you know her?" As it turned out, the woman standing in front of me was none other than the base commander herself. Scorching Huan looked at me with obvious surprise in her eyes. She prided herself on flawless military discipline and a sharp memory. But looking at the young, good-looking guy standing before her, she scanned her memories and came up completely blank. She was absolutely certain she had never seen my face in her life. "What do you want with Scorching Huan?" she asked, eyeing me with deep suspicion. I had absolutely no clue that the woman questioning me with such coldness was in reality my wife by convenience. "I'm her husband," I blurted out bluntly. "I came all the way out here to see her about a piece of business." The suspicion on her face instantly hardened into distrust. "Young man, you look barely of age. Why are you telling so many lies? Scorching Huan doesn't have a husband. Who are you really?" The exhaustion, the thirst, and the crappy attitude of these people finally snapped my last nerve. I threw politeness out the window and flared up in anger. "Comrade, how the hell do you know Scorching Huan doesn't have a husband? Call her out here, right now. Let her face me clone to clone. And don't look at me like I actually wanted to come to this miserable place. I am tired and I am thirsty." One of the soldiers standing by her took an uncomfortable step forward. "Comrade, the person in front of you is our commander, and she is also the Scorching Huan you're looking for." "What?" I froze. The person I was hunting down was standing right in front of me. What a pathetic embarrassment. I had completely screwed up. Around us, the rest of the soldiers stood there in absolute shock. Everyone in the military district knew the commander was married, but nobody knew the real story behind it. Years ago, when Scorching Huan was preparing for her promotion to commander, a rumor went around that higher-ups would prioritize those with settled families, reasoning that married women would have a stronger sense of belonging and stability. Around that same time, her family pressured her to marry the grandson of the benefactor who had saved her grandfather's life. Even though they said the guy was just a village peasant, I had seen a photo of me. I looked good, and since I was the benefactor's grandson, she agreed. Once her career stabilized, Scorching Huan planned to get in touch with me, but distance and a massive misunderstanding ruined everything. When she tried to find out if I was willing to join her in the military, she received the worst possible report. Supposedly, I had been unfaithful. For a military officer, destroying a military marriage is a serious crime, so she wanted to investigate it thoroughly. But before she could move a finger, a second devastating report arrived. The files claimed that man had committed suicide alongside his mistress. The supposed mistress had been rescued and was currently rotting in prison. Because of that, she stopped investigating. The whole base knew that tragic version of the story because Scorching Huan's superiors kept pestering her about her family situation. In fact, they had been telling her to bring her husband to live at the base for a while to strengthen the relationship. What nobody expected, least of all her, was for the supposedly dead and buried husband to suddenly pop up in the middle of the desert, alive, demanding to sign divorce papers. Scorching Huan had no choice but to tell her superiors the ugly truth about her supposed marriage. She didn't expect the soldier's visiting relative, a notorious loose-lipped gossip who happened to be walking by, to overhear every single word. Within hours, the entire base knew. And now, out of nowhere, a remarkably handsome guy shows up at the gates, claiming to be the commander's husband. The sentries standing guard exchanged bewildered glances, trying to piece the rumors together. Scorching Huan finally snapped out of her daze. Her eyes hardened. "I am Scorching Huan, and I don't have a husband. Who the hell are you?" She was interrogating me like I was some caught criminal. "Didn't you get the letter your family sent you?" I asked. She paused, thinking back. Over the last few days, she hadn't received a single piece of mail. one of her soldiers chimed in. "Commander, the mailman for this sector is sick and still at home. This place is so remote they couldn't find a replacement, so he took a few days off. The mail will probably be delayed for a while." "How do you know that?" Sung Ching Kwang demanded. "A few days ago, I wanted to see if I had letters from home and see if I could request an early leave. I went to check on him and found him terribly ill. There was no one to care for him, so I bought him some medicine. It's true, Commander. No mail has come through." Sung Ching Huang turned back to me, her gaze piercing. "Fine, but you still haven't told me why you are calling yourself my husband." "My name is Yu Chen. I live in Yujia Village, Lucheng County. The man your family actually set you up with was supposed to be the village chief's son, Yu Ai, but he's dead. When his family went through his belongings after the suicide, they found a marriage certificate with my name on it. When they investigated, they discovered that Yu Ai registered a marriage with you 2 years ago, but he used my household registry page to do it." I took a breath, the ridiculousness of the situation still tasting bitter. That year, the county was re-registering households. Everyone in the village left their registry booklets at the chief's house so he could take them to the county center. Yu Ai didn't want to marry you, but his family was suffocating him with pressure. So the bastard stole my page from the pile, sent it in, and legally married you under my identity. I was away studying at the university in the capital, completely oblivious. My family didn't double-check their booklet back then, so they never noticed a page was missing. It was a complete freak accident of fate. I ended up married to you." I looked her dead in the eye. "If it wasn't for this mess, we wouldn't have a damn thing to do with each other. You're a high-ranking regiment commander. I'm sure you don't want a forced arranged marriage any more than I do. I feel the exact same way, which is why I dragged myself out to this desert to get a divorce." I let out a dry laugh. "But here's the catch. Our families are dead set on us making this work, and my parents refused to let me divorce you. They insisted I give it a shot. I temporarily agreed, but it was just a stall tactic to buy time. I came here to propose a partnership. I'll stay here for 1 month. Act like I don't exist, go about your normal life. After 30 days, we call our families and tell them we are completely incompatible, and it's just not working. Then I get my divorce." I spoke with absolute conviction. For a kid fresh out of college, I carried myself with an undeniable, heavy presence. Hearing that her marriage wasn't actually tied to the unfaithful, dead Yu Ai made Sung Ching Kwang feel a wave of relief. "Fine, stay here for now. As soon as I get back to office, I'll prepare the divorce report." "Thank you. I appreciate the help for this month. Just find me any place to crash, a vacant dormitory, an empty house in the military zone, whatever. I can even pay rent for the month. You don't need to roll out the red carpet for me. I'll be gone before you know it." As I spoke, Sung Ching Kwang couldn't help but look at me. I clearly had the kind of looks that drew people in. She glanced down at my hands. They were smooth, lacking the rough calluses of hard labor. It was obvious that even though I came from a remote, impoverished village, my family must have coddled and spoiled me, shielding me from a single day of real work. "Let's go," she said. "I'll take you into the military zone to get you settled." "By the way," I mumbled, rubbing the back of my neck, "after I got off the bus, I ended up leaving my suitcase further down the road. Could you give me a hand with it?" She stared at me, amused. "Coming all this way with just a backpack didn't make much sense. So you went and lost your suitcase on the road." "Celion, drive. Follow our usual patrol route deep into the desert toward the bus stop and search along the way. See if you can find his suitcase. If you spot it, bring it back." "Yes, Commander." Celion climbed into the military vehicle and headed out into the vast emptiness. Song Ching Wan was going to drive me back to the military zone first. This desert sector was right on the border, and it was a long, brutal drive back to the actual base. The relentless travel over the past few days had completely drained me. The moment I sank into the passenger seat, my body completely gave up, and I relaxed into the cushion. "You might have gotten off the bus at the wrong stop if it was out in that direction," Song Ching Wan said. She waited a few minutes, but no one answered. Curiously, she turned her head and saw that my head had already slumped sideways, completely knocked out. She stopped talking and instinctively slowed the car down, driving as smoothly as possible to avoid waking me up. Meanwhile, Celion tracked down my luggage along the desert road and made it back to the military base way before we did. He couldn't keep his mouth shut and immediately blabbed everything he saw and heard to a fellow soldier. Within minutes, the wildfire spread. The commander's husband has arrived, and he's here for a divorce. This piece of gossip easily crushed the previous record holder, the time the commander lost her temper at the bean powder vendors. By 6 p.m., the harsh desert climate reared its ugly head. The temperature plummeted violently from a scorching 30 degrees Celsius down to a biting 10 degrees Celsius. Summer turned into winter in the blink of an eye. The environment out here was fiercely hostile, capricious, and plagued by sudden gale force winds. Usually, civilians coming here on military business couldn't handle it for more than a day. Song Ching-won parked the car inside the military district, but I was still dead to the world. She sat there, silently studying my sleeping face. He claimed he was going to stay here for a whole month, but looking at him, she seriously doubted this fragile college kid could endure these conditions. "Commander, why did you take so long to get back?" Celion walked up to the car, lowering his voice. "I already cleaned up a place for brother-in-law to stay. I even carried his luggage over there." Only when he got closer did he realize I was asleep. I blinked my eyes open, entirely dazed. "We're at the military district," Song Ching-won said smoothly. "The quarters are about a 10-minute walk from here. Put this on. Don't move yet or you'll catch a cold." She handed me a thick coat. I had to admit, this fake wife of mine was remarkably considerate. She even knew to look out for me. "Thank you," Celion chimed in, smiling at me. "Sorry if I woke you, brother-in-law." "It's fine," I mumbled, stretching my stiff limbs. I was just exhausted and passed out. "I heard you found my luggage. Where did you put it?" "Right in the room. I assigned brother-in-law a spot in the vacant family housing building. You can stay there for now, and if you don't like it, you can request a transfer tomorrow when you have time." "Thank you so much. Sorry for the trouble. Just give me the key. You guys can go attend to your duties." "All right, sister. I'm off then," Celion said, handing over the key before disappearing. The journey had been entirely too long. Sometimes, wrapped up in the exhaustion, I forgot the advanced, comfortable technology of the parallel world I had left before coming to this place. Since I was a kid, my family had pampered me. If I really thought about it, outside of pulling all-nighters to study, I couldn't handle any real physical suffering. But at least I wasn't useless. When I was at the university in the capital, I used my brains to take on part-time jobs to ease my family's financial burden. I'd even teamed up with a wealthy classmate, caught a lucrative investment wave, and made a killing. I thought my life was going to be smooth, prosperous, and comfortable, but who would have guessed? Fate had dug a massive, gaping hole for me right here in the dirt. All my goal now was to get this divorce over with as fast as possible and run back to my good life. In this bleak, unfamiliar wasteland, all I wanted was to leave. Song Ching-won caught the heavy sigh escaping my lips. She mistakenly figured I was feeling miserable because the base conditions were too harsh for a city boy. In reality, it wasn't her fault. A top-tier university student, fresh off graduation, suddenly finding out some dead idiot stole his identity to marry a stranger, even if it was a massive misunderstanding, legally, it was a done deal.
To cancel a marriage like this, you have to go through the actual legal process of divorce. If Yu Chen ever wanted to get married for real in the future, he would permanently carry the stigma of being a second marriage man. Putting it bluntly, the kid was getting completely screwed over in this deal. "If you need anything at all, just tell me," Song Ching-won said, her voice tight with a mix of guilt and responsibility. "I'll do whatever I can to sort it out, don't worry. Just stay for the month first." The moment we arrived at the family housing complex, the rumor mill was already spinning out of control. Seeing Commander Son walking up the stairs with a strange, remarkably handsome young man, the housewives and residents practically broke their necks stretching to get a good look. They huddled in the corridors, whispering with faces full of intense curiosity. She lived on the 3rd floor. As we climbed the stairs, even the neighborhood kids stopped to stare at me like I was a circus attraction. The narrow hallway smelled heavily of a suffocating mix of various household cooking odors. To be honest, I absolutely loathed living in this kind of collective dormitory setup. I preferred a proper, independent house with its own courtyard and a private bathroom and toilet that were strictly for my own exclusive use. But the room was already set up, and out here, beggars couldn't choosers. The desert climate was a different beast. The temperature was already dropping fast as night crawled in. "Commander Son! Commander Son!" Predictably, a middle-aged busybody from down the hall stepped into our path to grill us under the guise of being neighborly. Everyone already knew I had come for a divorce. The gossip had outrun the car.
Scorching Huan stood there, briefly paralyzed by the awkwardness of the situation. How in the hell was she supposed to introduce me? Her relationship with her own family was strained enough as it was. Aunt John, Scorching Huan interrupted smoothly, trying to cut her off. He just arrived. He's exhausted, so I'm taking him inside to rest. Oh, Qing Huan, don't be in such a hurry to hide away. Introduce us, Aunt John pressed, her eyes scanning me up and down. What exactly are you to Commander Son, young man? I didn't blink. I'm her legal husband. As we finally pushed past her and stepped inside, the apartment was neatly made, covered in thick, heavy quilts of a uniform military green. They were clearly the blankets Celine raided from her own quarters. Those are my blankets, she explained, looking a bit self-conscious. Celine pulled them from my wardrobe. They're already washed and clean. All right, thank you very much, I said, putting my backpack down. When my month is up and I leave, I'll wash them for you. Where's the water? There's a public tap on every floor. The communal shower facility is on the ground floor. The mess hall should still have food right now. I can take you down to eat, or I can just bring something back for you. Don't bother bringing it back. I am actually starving, I muttered. Let's go eat together. That way I can learn to route myself. I can't be a burden and have you catering to me every single day. All right, let's go. As we walked back down the stairs, the whispers from the open doorways followed us like a shadow. My God, the commander's husband is way too handsome. They're saying he came here for a divorce? With looks like that, even if he's a divorced man, women will be lining up around the block for him. Is the rumor today actually true? Did he really come for a divorce, or is it a lie? He looks like a top-tier academic talent. A guy that good definitely wouldn't be happy with a forced arrangement. Even if there was a mix-up with the grooms, I think they look perfect together. Exactly. Commander Sun's family all have stable, high-ranking jobs back in the capital. Her background is excellent. And the commander, besides being a little cold, is a genuinely good person. Look at those two faces together. If she weren't in the military, she'd be a massive movie star. They look like a match made in heaven, a brilliant scholar and a beautiful warrior. We left the residential compound and walked straight toward the regiment's main mess hall. This was where the real awkwardness began. We ran into hordes of soldiers heading to and from dinner. Because Sun King Huan was the commanding officer, every single soldier we passed snapped to attention and saluted. They saluted her, but their eyes were glued entirely to me, dissecting the stranger walking beside their fierce commander. When we reached the dining hall, the line was massive. I peered over the shoulders of the men in front of us to check the menu. The options were bleak: coarse corn cakes and standard side dishes of potatoes tossed with egg drop soup. She ordered 2 rations and handed me an aluminum mess tin. We'll have to make do with this tonight, she said quietly. If there's something specific you want to eat, tell me. I'll find some time to drive down to the local town to buy it. Sun King Huan had grown up in the capital. Her family's wealth and status meant she had tasted the best of everything before joining the military. But after being stationed at this border garrison, she quickly learned how harsh and unforgiving life out here really was. Since she grew up in military circles, she was used to roughing it up. I looked down at the dull metal tin in my hands, then glanced around the room. The soldiers around us were inhaling their food with absolute relish. It made sense. After a brutal day of grueling desert training, they were bone-tired and starving. To them, this was a feast. But I was a boy from the south. Since the day I was born, I ate soft, white jasmine rice. Even when my family was dirt poor during my childhood, we always managed to cook a pot of white rice, pairing it with some simple stir-fried celery or steamed eggs with pickled greens. Compared to that, the dry, heavy northern staples served here looked completely unappetizing. Or maybe the sheer exhaustion of the journey had finally killed my appetite, replacing hunger with a hollow ache. It's fine, Sun King Huan said, noticing my hesitation. Just eat a little. If you really can't stomach it, don't force it. I can take the rest back to the room for my late-night dinner. I'll pass the rest to you now so I don't make a mess of it, I said, picking at a small portion. This is more than enough for me. The moment we finished, Sun King Huan took the aluminum tin from my hands and walked over to the wash stations outside the mess hall to clean it herself, refusing to let me lift a finger. Xiao Sun, an older officer walked up, accompanied by his wife. The woman beamed, her eyes locking onto me instantly. Xiao Sun, I heard someone from your family arrived today. This must be your husband, right? Sun King Huan cleared her throat, looking intensely uncomfortable. It's a bit complicated, Auntie. I can explain the details later. Oh, look at what an energetic, handsome young man, the woman gushed, completely ignoring her excuse. Where are you from, dear? Hello, my name is Yu Chen. I'm from the south. I grew up there. No wonder, she chirped, clapping her hands. They always say the southern lands raise the most refined, beautiful people. It's absolutely true. Don't be shy around here, young man. We don't get many fresh young faces in the residential zone. If you two have some free time, you must come over to our house for a visit. Go on now, take your sister-in-law back to rest.
I need to have a quick word with Xiao's son. The moment the brigade commander's wife dropped those words, I knew I was trapped. I couldn't exactly say no, so I had to resign myself to my fate and walk away with her, leaving Sun King Huan to face the music with the other elders. It's about your situation, the older woman started the moment they were out of earshot, her face tight with worry. Today, I asked the boys who just got back from the guard post, what exactly are your plans, Qing Huan? You know I've watched you grow up since you were a little girl. 2 years ago, when I saw your marriage application, I finally didn't have to worry about you anymore. Who would have thought a mess like this would pop up? I don't know who leaked it today, but the entire garrison knows. A man literally materialized out of the desert, tracked you down, and told you he wants a divorce. It had to be that big-mouthed Cillian. To be honest, Auntie, even if Cillian hadn't said anything, someone else would have. It was going to come out sooner or later. Speak up then. Why are you just standing there keeping quiet? Are you really thinking of going through with this divorce? The woman pressed, getting worked up. Yu Ilei's cheating already dragged your name through the mud. If you get a divorce on top of that, how are you ever going to get transferred back to the capital? The higher-ups will look at your file. I'm submitting the divorce report first thing tomorrow morning, Sun King Huan said, stubborn as a mule. No, you can't just throw it away. The boys told me what happened. Both families want you and this young man to build a proper relationship. He's a university graduate. He suddenly finds out he's a married man without ever knowing it. It's completely normal that he's spooked and wants a divorce. But look at him. He said he's only staying here for a month and then he's leaving, Sun King Huan said, muttering, looking down. You are as stubborn as a tree stump. I don't know how you can be so incredibly sharp and clever when you're executing military missions, yet so clueless now. Now that you've actually seen the boy, what do you think? If you're interested, you need to fight for it. The boy's good. He's educated. Later on, we could easily pull some strings and get him a proper job position here, couldn't we? Sun King Huan sighed, the weight of the past 2 years catching up to her. Honestly, Auntie, back then, I only got married because I was at the right age and it coincided with my promotion window. My family introduced me to the grandson of my grandfather's old comrade in arms. I was too lazy to go out and look for someone myself, so I just accepted the arrangement. But I had never even met that Yu Ilei, and the bastard went and humiliated me by cheating. Usually I'm swamped with missions. Most of my time is spent in grueling training or active operations. After Yu Ilei's betrayal, I completely gave up on the idea of finding anyone. Now suddenly a real marriage certificate pops up with a completely different real husband attached to it. I'm still a bit dazed. She looked back towards the housing complex. This real husband seems to be an honest person, and he's already made it crystal clear that he wants out. He doesn't accept a forced marriage any more than I do. I'll submit the report, and once it's approved. Meanwhile, on my end of the housing complex, I felt like I was trapped at a chaotic New Year's family reunion, getting interrogated by a horde of intrusive relatives checking my family register. When you came out of the desert today, you must have gotten off the wrong bus stop, one of the neighborhood aunties said, shaking her head. Thank goodness nothing happened to you. That place is completely godforsaken. If you had run into real danger out there, what would you have done? Yeah, I mumbled, rubbing my neck. I got off at the wrong stop. It was entirely my fault. I was in a rush and didn't double check the route before leaving. It looks like that old man with the ox cart didn't lie to me after all. Wow, I spent the whole walk thinking I'd been scammed, but it turns out I was just an idiot.
but the fact that they already knew every detail of my arrival was terrifying. The space was so tiny that any microscopic rumor spread like wildfire. I was witnessing the terrifying power of small-town gossip firsthand. This stuff traveled way faster than the internet. "What did you study at the university, young man?" Aunt Jan asked, leaning in. "I studied medicine," I replied. "Oh, studying medicine is wonderful. You'll never lack a job anywhere, and you're a proper university graduate. Song Ching-hwan is a commander, so your position as a military dependent can easily be managed by the higher-ups. After all, you're a real asset. Yes, medicine is a great field. When a husband and wife live together with backgrounds like yours, life will be incredibly prosperous." "I actually came here to get a divorce," I stated flatly, trying to shut down the fantasy. "Are you really getting a divorce?" Another aunt chimed in, horrified. "You traveled all this way just for that? Young man, are you absolutely sure about this?" "If I wasn't sure, why on earth would I have dragged myself out to the middle of nowhere?" Sure, this accidental, second-hand wife of mine was remarkably beautiful, and she clearly knew how to take care of people, but that didn't mean I was going to change my entire life's trajectory and stay in a desert outpost. "You're young," the aunt insisted, patting my arm. "Perhaps this is the destiny that heaven has arranged for you. Just live together for a while. Look at each other. You've got nothing to lose. How long are you staying?" "A month is more than enough." Look, I'm not exaggerating just because I'm her aunt, but Commander Song Ching-hwan is truly top tier. You won't find a girl this good in 1,000 miles. And besides, look how young she is. She's already holding the rank of commander. She earned every bit of it with her own brains and sheer hard work. As the saying goes, fate binds those destined to meet, even if they're 1,000 miles apart. Maybe this is the connection between you two. These older generations always love spouting this destiny nonsense. I could only stand there flashing a deeply uncomfortable plastic smile, completely at a loss for how to respond. Just when I thought my face would crack from fake smiling, Song Ching-hwan finally walked up. I had never in my life been so desperate to see this second-hand wife of mine. These aunts were genuinely terrifying me with their aggressive matchmaking. "Sister-in-law, aunts, I'm here to take him back. It's getting very late. If we don't hurry, the hot water in the public baths downstairs is going to run out." "Yes, it's getting very late. I'll be heading out first. Aunt, you should also get some rest early." "Right, it's late. We won't bother you two anymore. Tomorrow, make sure you both come over to my place for dinner. I'm a fantastic cook." "How could we trouble you like that, sister-in-law?" Song Ching-hwan said, trying to decline politely. "It's no trouble at all. Where's the trouble in a simple meal? Your sister-in-law genuinely likes you. My own 2 kids are already working away from home and rarely ever visit. The house is entirely too quiet. I love chatting with young people. Tomorrow, you must come eat, since Auntie insists." I smiled, playing along. "Then tomorrow, I'll show up shamelessly. I just hope you don't grow sick of me." This section was the residential area for military families, and it was about 500 meters walk back to the collective dormitory building where I was staying. The moment I reached the ground floor of the building, a massive wall of noise hit me from the inside. It was a chaotic symphony of adults shouting, kids crying, and the loud overlapping sounds of everyday life from dozens of separate households. Song Ching-hwan led me all the way up the stairs to my door. "I'm heading back first. If you need anything, just tell me tomorrow. The hot water downstairs cuts off strictly at 9 p.m. If you want to wash up, go early." "I know," I replied. During the day, I had walked miles through the unforgiving desert, sweating buckets. Now that the night temperature had plummeted, that dried sweat felt freezing against my skin. I unzipped my suitcase, grabbed a change of clean clothes, took my wash basin, and headed back down the stairs. I crossed paths with a few soldiers on the way, but the corridors were thinning out. Most of the base had already bathed. Good. The fewer people, the better. I honestly couldn't remember when the last time I had to stand stark naked in front of a crowd of strangers. Back when I was studying in the capital, the moment I started making a decent bit of money, I immediately moved out of the cramped university dorms and rented a proper apartment. It had a private, clean bathroom and a tidy room where I had my own sacred personal space. It had been bliss. As a medical student, I spent most of my spare time researching and formulating my own products, specifically high-grade sunscreens and specialized medicinal oils for bruises, sprains, and muscle tears. I possessed striking looks and a good head on my shoulders, and back in the capital, people always complimented my flawless skin. I'd use that as an opening to preach the absolute necessity of daily sunscreen. Eventually, whenever classmates or locals got hurt from a fall, they used my medicinal oil, and rave reviews spread like crazy by mouth of word. Pretty soon, a ton of people were buying my custom sunscreen and oils. I was making a very handsome profit. I walked slowly down the damp corridor. As I reached the public baths, a few soldiers were just stepping out. Even though they didn't know me from Adam, they called out warmly, "Young man, you better hurry up. Don't let the hot water run out on you or you'll catch a death of cold." "I know, thank you," I muttered repeatedly, nodding as I brushed past them. "Thank you, I know, thanks." Behind my back, I could already hear them whispering, "The commander's new guy, there's no doubt about it. He's incredibly handsome." I quickened my pace, my mind already racing with logistical problems. I needed to figure out a way to secure hot water on my own so I could bathe privately inside my room. The problem was that hauling water up 3 flights of stairs and heating it manually was going to be a massive pain in the ass. Plus, the room didn't even have a wash tub. No tub, no running hot water. I'll have to bring this up to my second-hand wife tomorrow, I thought. When I finally stepped into the shower area, luck was on my side. Because I had arrived so late, the place was completely empty. I cheered silently, washed up as fast as humanly possible, and hurried back to my room. The moment my head hit the mattress, I drifted off, completely oblivious to when I actually fell asleep. But the peace didn't last. Early the next morning, I was violently jerked awake by a barrage of slamming doors, parents screaming at their kids, and sharp, piercing toddler tantrums. This building had absolutely zero sound insulation. I sat up in bed, my brain still half scrambled from exhaustion. I reached for my watch on the nightstand to check the time. It was 7:30. Wow, entirely too early, I groaned. I collapsed back onto the mattress, pulled the heavy military quilt over my head, and tried to drown out the external racket. I managed to force myself back into a deep nap, sleeping straight through the morning until 1 p.m. I woke up slowly, feeling human again, but the moment I unlocked and pulled open my door, I froze. Son Kin Hwan was standing right outside. She was holding 2 packed tiffin boxes, looking as imposing as ever. She naturally carried herself with a cold, unapproachable aura that practically screamed, "Don't get within 10 feet of me." It was the exact vibe that made ordinary civilians completely terrified to be in the same room as her. But the moment her eyes met mine, her delicate, pale face instantly flushed the bright crimson. She immediately darted her gaze away, clearing her tuft comfortably. "You haven't eaten breakfast yet, have you?" she asked, her voice rigid. I stepped aside slightly, gesturing for her to come inside. "I just got up. I'm going to brush my teeth first." Grabbing my basin, I walked out toward the public sinks located at the end of the corridor near the communal bathroom. The apartment didn't have its own restroom, and that was just the harsh reality of living here. Right now, every family in the building was busy preparing lunch. The sudden sight of a man walking across the hallway in his pajamas holding a toothbrush naturally drew every single eye until I stopped at the sink. "No wonder he's from the capital," one of the neighborhood women whispered loudly down the hall. "Those pajamas don't look cheap. The fabric looks like pure silk. And look at his slippers. Excellent quality, completely different from ours. So clean and tidy." "If you ask me, this man should divorce Commander's son," a man sneered back. The kid looks incredibly lazy. It's already noon and he's barely rolling out of bed. And on top of that, Commander's son has to fetch his food and bring it right to him. Sure, he's good looking, but sleeping until midday and expecting meals to be dropped right into his mouth, that's the textbook style of a spoiled capitalist master. How could a guy like that ever be worthy of Commander's son? Exactly, another busybody chimed in. What capitalist master? He's a textbook peasant from a completely humble background. How do I know? Yesterday at Lon May's house, some of the villagers were saying that even though his family is dirt poor, they had 3 generations of only daughters. The entire family is women. He's the only male. He studied hard since he was a kid and made it to the university. In his entire village, he's the only one who ever became a college graduate. It's normal that he doesn't know how to do a damn thing. But what's the use of studying well? What actually matters is earning real money. I could hear them tearing me apart, but I didn't give a single damn. Let them talk. I'd be gone in a month anyway. In a world this massive, the odds of me ever crossing paths with these people again were practically zero. As I walked back down the corridor, someone nodded a greeting and I flashed a polite smile returning the gesture. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. The woman was already sitting patiently at the small living room table waiting for me. The tiffin boxes remained unopened. I have to admit, genuinely beautiful people can just sit there doing absolutely nothing and they still look like a stunning piece of scenery. "You can eat first," I said, putting my wash basin away. "You didn't need to wait for me." "I already ate. These 2 are for you," Song Ki-chuan replied, her voice smooth. This woman was truly stunning. To be fair, outside of our first unpleasant encounter in the desert, she had treated me with nothing but absolute courtesy, decorum, and care. She opened them. "These are corn buns stuffed with vegetables, and these are standard steamed rolls. I didn't know what you liked, so I brought a little of everything." Looking at the food, I suddenly thought about Yu, that lovesick fool who threw his life away for a female intellectual sent down to the countryside. If they had actually loved each other, fine. But that girl only seduced the village secretary's son so she wouldn't have to do hard labor, getting him to sneak food to her from his family's stash. And it didn't even stop there. Even after she married, she kept stringing him along, got pregnant, and claimed a kid belonged to Yu. When she was finally cornered and caught, she dragged the idiot down to jump into the river with her. I really had to wonder, how the hell were the young men of this era so incredibly easy to trick? If Yu hadn't been a complete dumbass and willingly married Sung King-hwan, his future would have been golden. "There's so much food here, I can't finish it all," I said, looking at the portions. "You should eat some too, otherwise throwing it out would be a total waste." "This should fill you up more or less," she noted. The real problem was that I absolutely loathe food made from heavy flour. If anyone out there actually understood me, they'd know that if this were a white rice paired with a couple of fresh stir fries, I could easily demolish 2 massive bowls. But looking at the heavy northern buns, my stomach shrank. "Then I'll just eat half a roll," I muttered. Sung Kin-hwan watched me chew slowly. "Chen, you eat so delicately. You look completely out of place next to the rough men in the army." "I usually eat pretty fast," I explained defensively. "It's just that when the food doesn't interest me, my speed drops drastically." "I'll wash the dishes," she said, picking up the tins when I finished. "Do you need help with anything else? I'll assist you. You've come a very long way, so it's only right that I look after you a bit more." I felt a slight twinge of embarrassment, but I wasn't the type to foolishly insist on doing everything myself. I was never one to rush into physical labor, and if someone was willing to help me out, I was perfectly happy to enjoy the moment. Frankly, I was pretty shameless in that regard. "I'm really not used to bathing in the public showers. There are way too many people. I want to heat up water myself and bathe inside the room, but I need a wash tub and a large pot to boil the water. Oh, and I don't even have a stove. I didn't think living here would be this complicated. Do I actually have to light a coal stove myself?" Back when I lived alone in Jin City, I used modern gas cylinders. Arriving here and seeing everyone managing those messy, suffocating charcoal stoves made my head ache. I had zero desire to mess around with that, mostly because I didn't know how, and I certainly didn't care to learn. "I can get you a stove," she offered, noting my frustration. Some people just aren't cut out for public facilities. Right now, I was intensely missing my rented room back in Jin. It was small, but it had absolutely everything. Over there, I didn't even have to wash my own clothes. The money I made in gin, minus food expenses and fixed savings, was purely for my own enjoyment. Remembering those easy days made me sigh. Heaven help me, I wanted to get the hell out of here even earlier than planned. Even at home, my parents always praised my ability to enjoy the good life. After grinding through so many brutal years studying medicine, all I wanted was to rest well. Seriously, I couldn't handle this primitive setup.
Did you already hand in the divorce request? I asked, looking up. She submitted it this morning, she replied flatly. I expect we'll hear back from the higher-ups in a little while. Good. As long as that divorce request is approved, everything is solved. I tried to motivate myself. Look, the conditions here aren't as good as gin, and it's nowhere near as comfortable as home, but I can endure it. I can adapt. It's no problem. I paused, an idea forming in my head. Hey, I have a suggestion. Hear me out. Regarding the divorce request, I reckon we'll know the final result in about 10 days, right? The exact moment it goes through, I'm leaving. Even though I originally planned to stay for a month to give my family an explanation so they'd think I genuinely tried to make it work, I think it's perfectly fine if I leave early. Later, if your family asks, just cover for me. Tell them I was here for a whole month and we tried our best to get along, but it just didn't work out. You have to back me up on this because I'm terrified our families will get in touch, find out I bolted early, and then my parents will completely skin me alive for not even lasting a month. The moment those words left my mouth, I noticed a subtle shift in her expression. Her mood seemed to instantly sour, dropping a notch into cold silence. Well, she was a commander, a decorated military officer, and everyone on base prided her on being an incredibly upright, righteous person. A woman like this probably considered lying beneath her dignity, and I couldn't exactly force her to play along. But as the old saying goes, the more paths you clear, the more friends you make. I just hoped she'd throw me a bone. It's not worth fighting over something so minor, Sung Kyung cut in, her voice clipped and distant. Once the divorce is approved, you can leave. If my family asks, I won't lie to them. If we don't fit, we don't fit. There's no need for us to force ourselves to get to know each other for a month. She said we didn't fit, but in reality, I was the only one who thought that. She didn't see any problem with us at all. So far, the guy seemed perfectly normal to her. Aside from eating a bit slow and being entirely too meticulous about his surroundings, there was nothing genuinely wrong with him. If he didn't want to do household chores, she could easily do them herself. She had no idea what was actually running through my mind. Hearing her words, a wave of relief washed over me. Perfect. The moment the divorce goes through, I'll tell my parents we just weren't compatible, and that forced feelings don't work. They can't exactly drag me back to the altar. Soon, very soon, I'll be leaving this barren border, resting for a month at home, then heading straight back to Jin City. My custom sunscreen and medicinal oils were selling like hotcakes. I'd dive back into researching new formulas and make a killing. After that, I'd look into landing a position at a hospital in Jin. It was a bit far from my hometown, but if I pooled my vacation days, I could travel back every 2 months to visit my family. It was a solid plan. In the span of a single minute, I had mapped out my entire future, and it included absolutely everything except getting married. I carried the memories of 2 lifetimes. In my previous life, the divorce rate heavily eclipsed the marriage rate, and plenty of people happily chose to stay single. Back then, I was young, fresh out of college and barely in my 20s. Marriage wasn't even on my radar. After waking up in this timeline, I poured all my energy into my medical studies, leaving even less room for romance. Sure, I had plenty of admirers at the university, but women would only disrupt my studies, jeopardize my scholarships, and ruin my rhythm for building a comfortable life. Time is money, and my absolute priority was making wealth. As evening fell, Lon May walked straight over to my quarters to personally invite me to dinner at her house. I felt a bit embarrassed to show up empty-handed, but luckily I had packed a secret weapon in my suitcase: high-end imported chocolates. In this era, chocolate was a luxury snack, expensive and incredibly hard to come by, let alone the foreign stuff. A wealthy classmate back in the capital had gifted them to me. His father suffered from chronic joint pain, and after using my custom medicinal oil, the old man's condition improved drastically. We became fast friends through that. The guy had access to all sorts of rare foreign goods because his family was loaded.
Thanks to him, I had tasted plenty of exotic delicacies, and he often threw massive bundles of gifts my way, some of which I even sent back to my parents. I hadn't brought many boxes this time, but I managed to scrape together about half a bag's worth to bring along. "What's this, brother-in-law?" Lan Mei asked as we arrived, her eyes widening at the package. "They're imported chocolates from a friend," I said, handing them over. "I came here in such a rush that I didn't bring anything decent. Please, try some. I think they taste pretty good." "Where on earth do you even get imported chocolates?" she gasped, looking at the bag like it was filled with gold. "What a waste. What an absolute waste. I invite you for a simple dinner and you bring something this expensive?" "I'd feel too embarrassed otherwise, sister-in-law. I can't just show up to eat for free. It's just a snack. If you don't accept it, I'm turning right around and leaving." All right, brother-in-law. I won't stand on ceremony tonight. You have to eat until you're completely stuffed." She smiled warmly. "Some of the other military families are joining us. My husband invited a few officers over so everyone can get to know you." The older couple hadn't whispered a word to each other, but they were thinking exactly the same thing. They wanted to play matchmaker for the two of us. Because of that, the guests who showed up for dinner were all trusted inner circle people. The battalion commander, Vice Commander Zhang Wei, the regiment's deputy commander, and a few others who regularly hung out together. The men stuck to eating, drinking, and talking shop, but the women, every piece of small talk out of their mouths was a thinly veiled attempt to push us together, constantly singing Commander Sun's praises. There were 4 sister-in-laws present, and they had brought their kids along, chubby, pale, healthy little things that made you want to play with them. The spread on the table was incredibly heavy and substantial, making it obvious that Lan Mei had put immense effort into the meal. There was a massive platter of braised chicken, stewed potatoes with glass noodles, savory stewed fish, fried rice with meat, and pickled greens stir-fried with rich bacon, all rounded off with a hot egg drop soup. However, the true staples of this region still dominated the table. Large platters stacked with coarse whole grain buns, grain crepes, and massive bowls of cornmeal porridge. Some of the dishes had actually been brought over by the guests themselves. That was just the etiquette of the era. If someone invited you over, you brought a premium dish from your own kitchen to add to the table. I wasn't a fool. I saw right through their little matchmaking scheme from the second I sat down, but I had zero intention of getting hitched. I was practically cornered into a legal marriage while still finishing my degree. Luckily, Sung Kan-hwan was a reasonable, sensible woman. If fate had saddled me with an irrational, hysterical person, I would be living a nightmare right now. So, throughout the dinner, I kept a polite smile plastered on my face and played the part of the agreeable guest, navigating the conversation smoothly. Every now and then, I deliberately tease Song Kan-hwan or throw a witty comment at her way just to see her react, and the sound of her soft laughter occasionally drifted over the noise of the room. Outside in the brigade commander's yard, the wives were still bustling back and forth, entirely occupied with setting the heavy tables and keeping the food flowing, their faces full of collective satisfaction. I figured I couldn't just sit there like a lump, so I got up to help out. But the wives immediately blocked my path and shoved me back down. "Stay right here and look after the kids. We're almost finished anyway." One of the sister-in-laws unceremoniously dropped a plump, chubby baby straight into my arms. The little thing was only a few months old, staring up at me with massive, perfectly round eyes. To be honest, I absolutely detest crying, screaming brats, but this quiet, toothless little creature who couldn't even talk yet didn't bother me at all, so I didn't stand on ceremony. I settled back into a chair in the courtyard, holding the baby properly, while the whole group bustled around. That was the exact scene Sun Qinghwan walked into when she entered the courtyard for dinner. There I was, lounging in my clean, gray tracksuit and a pair of spotless white and purple canvas sneakers, cradling a baby and staring down at it with a subtle, quiet smile. The officers who marched in right behind the brigade commander and Sun Qinghwan instantly froze, their eyes nearly popping out of their skulls. No wonder the entire barracks had been in an absolute uproar since yesterday. Word of the commander taking her new guy to the mess hall had spread like wildfire, one soldier gossiping to the next. They had been hyping up the university graduate who came to demand a divorce, praising his looks like he was some kind of celestial being. Seeing me now, they realized the rumors hadn't exaggerated a single damn bit. In this arid, barren borderland, a harsh, gray world populated entirely by rough, weathered men, an elegant, remarkably handsome guy had suddenly materialized. There was no way in hell I wasn't going to turn heads. All right, everyone is here, and the food is hot. I even dragged out the good liquor I had hidden away. Come on, sit down, sit down. The brigade commander shouted a general greeting to the crowd, completely bypassing formal military protocol. Let me introduce everyone. This is Yu Chen. Hello, brother-in-law. I got up, still holding the baby, and flashed a slightly embarrassed smile. Calling me brother-in-law wasn't technically wrong yet, so I just rolled with it. Hello, Yu Chen. Regarding that wash tub, the water pot, and the coal stove you needed for hot water, I'll have the boys deliver them to your quarters later tonight, one of the officers offered.
Perfect, thank you so much, I replied. Lan Mei leaned over, inspecting my face closely. To be honest, Ah-chan, your skin is incredibly nice. It looks so smooth and delicate. How do you keep it like that? It's probably because I use sunscreen regularly, I explained. The air out here on the border is bone dry, and you all are exposed to the fierce wind and the blinding sun all day. It's no wonder it takes a toll. I knew it! I was telling them your skin looked completely different, Lan Mei chirped, turning to the other women. I had no idea it was because of that. But that sunscreen stuff you mentioned, isn't it terribly expensive? No, it's fine, I smiled. I used to formulate and prepare it myself back at the university. I just buy the raw ingredients and mix it. It didn't cost much at all. I've also been experimenting with custom medicinal oils for deep bruises and nasty sprains. Applying it yields fantastic results. When I finally head back home, I'll make sure to mail a batch out to you all from there. I didn't bring enough with me this time. Oh, there's no need for that, Lan Mei countered quickly. I was just being curious. Making that stuff yourself must take up so much of your time. By the way, have you already locked down a job now that you've graduated? I heard the military hospital out here is actively looking for doctors. Why don't you let my husband write a recommendation for you? I could see the gears turning in her head. Lan Mei was already actively plotting a way to tie me down to the base permanently. There's really no rush. I just graduated, I said smoothly, sidestepping the trap. If I wanted to find a job right away, my university professors would happily recommend me to top hospitals. Besides, I desperately want to just rest for a month or two. After grinding through so many years of medical school, I feel like I've severely abused my brain. I'm exhausted in a way that's hard to put into words. Honestly, if it weren't for the scholarship money, I would have thrown in the towel long ago. I let out a small, tired breath. All these years, I wasn't like those naturally gifted medical prodigies in my class. I had to push myself 3 or 4 times harder than everyone else just to keep my head above water and stay among the top-tier students. I'm completely spent. My professors genuinely believe I have this burning, sacred passion for medicine. Every time they look at me, their eyes are full of deep appreciation, and I can't exactly break their hearts by telling them I only ran myself into the ground for the money. I can't tell them it was strictly because a top rank exempted me from paying a massive chunk of my tuition. So the professors tell everyone I'm incredibly studious, dedicated, deeply in love with the profession, diligent, a true, promising young talent. I chuckled quietly. It's a beautiful misunderstanding. How can you even think like that? Lan Mei chiding, looking worried. Hunting for a job is something you have to do carefully, but you have to do it fast. Otherwise, all the premium positions will be snatched up by someone else. That would be a massive loss. Entering the military hospital is an excellent path. Out here in the border zone, they even throw in extra subsidies. I kept my mouth shut, but my internal thoughts were completely different from theirs. Why the hell would I rush to look for a job? Right now, I wasn't lacking a single cent. Just from the medicinal oils I had formulated and kept selling on the side, I was set. Before leaving for the border, I had manufactured a massive batch and handed the inventory over to that wealthy kid in the capital to manage the sales for me. Over these past 4 years of college, I had successfully hoarded more than 10,000 yuan in savings. A 10,000 yuan household in this specific era was a staggering fortune.
When the average person's monthly salary was only a few dozen yuan, I was sitting on a mountain of cash. I had plenty of time, plenty of money, and zero desire to slave away in a desert hospital. I just needed this divorce approved so I could go back to enjoying my wealth.
Someone, noticing that I had briefly drifted off into my own thoughts, patted my shoulder and spoke up. Our Commander-san is a truly good person. If you two, as a young couple, build a life together, your future will be incredibly prosperous. You should come directly to work at the region's military hospital. It would be a perfect fit. By the way, does your family have any strong opinions about your career path? My family doesn't have any complaints, I replied smoothly. They support whatever I choose to do. In fact, my mother explicitly told me that since I just graduated, I should take a good rest for a while. Once I actually start working, I won't have the luxury of so much vacation time anymore. That single statement caused a sudden wave of laughter around the table, but right after, it left everyone completely speechless. In this harsh era, no household had it easy. For a family to successfully put a child through university was already a monumental sacrifice. Naturally, the standard expectation upon graduation was to immediately secure a stable, secure job. How could a family willingly tell their educated son to just rest more? It became painfully obvious that I was the deeply coddled only son of my household. They had raised a remarkably refined, delicate boy. Forcing a kid like this to live permanently on the barren border wasn't a blessing. It was practically sentencing him to pure suffering. A military marriage out here was notoriously brutal. In these family housing quarters, a civilian husband would have to completely manage the small household by himself. If Commander San was ordered out on an active mission, a short deployment meant she'd be gone for 10 days to a 2-week stretch. Often, major operations lasted more than half a year, sometimes even a full year. If they eventually had a child, a guy like him would be trapped at home, raising a baby, and drowning in a mountain of endless domestic chores. Could a soft city kid like this actually handle it? Besides, just looking at him, he clearly wasn't built to endure primitive hardships. Forcing this union would only end up ruining him. I didn't expect your family to be so remarkably open-minded, the officer muttered, studying me. That's nice. But your hands, just looking at them, those are strictly the hands of someone who holds a pen for a living. Deep down, a sharp flash of absolute joy flared up. Bingo! Here's my perfect opportunity. If I took the floor right now and painted myself as a completely useless, helpless brat who couldn't lift a finger, not only would these matchmaking officers realize I was completely unsuitable for base life, but Sung Ching Huan would also become even more firmly convinced that a divorce was our only logical option. With that tactical goal in mind, I completely lost interest in playing the polite, agreeable guest. I leaned back and let out a self-deprecating chuckle. Don't laugh, everyone, but it's the honest truth. Since I was a little boy, my parents never allowed me to do a single day of hard labor. If I even tried to sweep the floor or wash a dish, they would severely scold my sisters for not taking proper care of me. I don't know how to cook, and I don't even know how to wash my own clothes. When I was away at the university, I specifically rented an apartment off campus and hired the neighbor next door to handle all my domestic chores. The reality is, I simply don't know how to do any of it. In my previous life, everything had been managed by advanced appliances and smart home automation. Who the hell actually did manual labor anymore? The moment I finished talking, the entire courtyard fell into a dead, stunned silence. Even the boisterous officers who had been heavily drinking completely froze. If we hadn't already heard that your ancestors for 3 generations were actual dirt-poor peasants from a remote village, one of the men muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. Hearing you speak like that, one would think you were the spoiled little heir of some wealthy capitalist. You actually hired someone to handle your chores while at the university? Several of the wives seated around the table immediately turned to look at Sung King Huang, their eyes filled with a completely new wave of pity. This poor woman.
Her first fiancé had been an unfaithful scoundrel who humiliated her by cheating. Now that things were finally looking up and her real husband had appeared, it turned out he was a delicate, high-maintenance prince who didn't know how to handle a single household chore. It was no wonder the kid wanted a divorce. Dragging him to live permanently on this barren border was just asking for a lifetime of domestic disaster. The collective expression of the courtyard completely flipped. Just minutes ago, they were thrilled, practically bursting with enthusiasm to push us into a blissful marriage. Now they looked entirely diffused. Lan Mei was the very first to break the awkward silence, forcing a stiff, intensely uncomfortable smile onto her face. "What are you all staring for? Eat, eat. Come on, let's finish up before the food gets completely cold." After the heavy dinner wound down, I stood around chatting politely with the men for a brief while. By the time we finally parted ways and broke up the gathering, it was already around 8 p.m. Sun King Huang walked slowly by my side as we headed down the dark path back toward the dormitories. Neither of us said a word for the longest time, and the night air between us felt thick, heavy with suffocating awkwardness. I glanced sideways at the woman walking parallel to me. Clad in her crisp military uniform, she naturally radiated a quiet, serene, yet intensely formidable aura. The sheer presence this fake wife of mine possessed was incredible. She truly looked every bit the high-ranking commander she was. "I am truly sorry." Sun King Huang finally broke the silence, her tone cool and indifferent, lacking even a shred of outward warmth. Yet, despite the professional distance, I could still catch the genuine apology buried underneath her words. Tonight's dinner, they organized it entirely on their own initiative. The higher-ups always look out for their subordinates, and the sisters-in-law here are simply very enthusiastic. I put you in a very difficult, awkward position. I was honestly surprised to hear a proud woman like her apologize to me. "No, please don't apologize," I said, waving it off. "I understand their intentions. They don't know the actual reality of our situation. They were just trying to be genuinely helpful. It really wasn't a big deal. Honestly, I had a pretty good time tonight." Sun King Huang kept her eyes on the path ahead, unable to fathom what exactly he could have found enjoyable about being interrogated by a crowd of matchmakers. Even though Yu Chen spoke without much emotion, he didn't possess that arrogant, insufferable attitude of a wealthy snob who looked down on ordinary folks. However, she was absolutely certain he wasn't telling her the complete truth. Even during dinner, he had carefully hidden his real feelings behind a polite facade. She had quietly observed him a few times during the meal. He had eaten the savory side dishes with genuine enthusiasm, but he had barely nibbled on the coarse flatbreads and the heavy steamed buns. Remembering the meal she had brought him earlier, she realized he hadn't left food behind because he couldn't finish the portions. Rather, the heavy northern flour staples weren't to his liking at all, but he chose to keep that to himself instead of complaining. He just ate in silence without showing a single shred of dissatisfaction. "He's definitely doing it out of consideration for me," Sun King Huang thought to herself. The more she observed me, the more she realized I possessed quite a few unexpected virtues. "Go back to the dormitory first," she said as we neared the building. "I'll have someone bring your things up." She paused for a moment, looking at the door. "I'll light the coal stove for you. Just remember to change out the carbon briquettes so the fire doesn't die. Do you actually know how to change a briquette?" It was true that I absolutely detested physical labor, but that didn't mean I lacked basic human common sense. Even if you've never personally tasted pork, you've at least seen a pig run. If I didn't even know how to swap out a simple coal briquette, she was severely underestimating me. I flashed a loose smile. "Yeah, I know how to do it." Commander Sun must be joking. Doesn't even a 3-year-old child know how to change a briquette? A faint, amused smile briefly tugged at the corners of Sun King Huang's lips. "Alright, then you handle the stove, understood? As for your clean clothes, you'll have to wash them yourself these days. If you really find yourself struggling, I can find a few of the neighborhood sisters-in-law to give you a hand." "No, please don't do that," I interjected instantly, my pride flaring up. "I can wash my own clothes. I'll handle it myself. Besides, they aren't even that dirty. A quick scrub is more than enough. Don't call anyone over." I still carried a shred of dignity. It wasn't like I was paying someone a wage out here. I didn't have the utter audacity to ask those military wives to scrub my dirty laundry. Besides, washing clothes wasn't rocket science. You throw them in a basin, let them soak for a bit, give them a good rub, rinse them out with some detergent, wring them dry, and hang them up. Too damn simple. I strolled back into the housing building, feeling intensely uncomfortable. Everywhere I stepped, people's eyes followed me. The relentless, gossiping stares of these residents were enough to make my hair stand on end. Checking the dimming sky, I grabbed my wash basin and headed down to the communal showers, finishing up in about half an hour. I walked back casually, carrying the basin filled with the clean clothes I had washed on the fly. As I climbed back to the third floor, I froze. Scorching was standing right by my door, meticulously shaking out and fixing my heavy military quilt. I stood there at the top of the stairs, utterly stunned for a second. I brushed past her to hang up my wet laundry inside the room, then walked back out to stand in the doorway, quietly watching her work. She was entirely occupied with taking care of my space. Down the third floor corridor, a few of the resident housewives immediately poked their heads out, unable to resist a show. "Commander Sun, you are entirely too considerate. He's a university graduate, a pampered young capitalist gentleman who only knows how to hold a pen. How could he ever handle this kind of heavy, rough work?" "Don't talk nonsense," another neighbor barked back, defending us. Yu Chen is from a textbook peasant background, pure farmers for generations. He's just been completely buried in his studies, unlike your boy Thidan, who always finishes dead last in his tests. Besides, young man, did you actually manage to wash those clothes without ruining the fabric? "What kind of malicious comment is that?" the first woman shrieked, her face flushing with anger. "If you're so damn worried about my Thidan, why don't you let him stay at your house for a few days, you old hag?" What did I say wrong? Who on base doesn't know who Thidan spends his entire day chasing chickens and barking at dogs? The second he gets out of school, he runs around the courtyard like a wild animal, absolutely filthy. The last time, during the parent-teacher meeting after exams, you chased him across the entire yard trying to beat him while he wailed at the top of his lungs. You're completely shameless, showing off your failing kid to the entire complex. Seeing the two of them on the absolute verge of a physical catfight, I stood there completely dazed. "All right, both of you stop screaming." An older woman stepped out, shutting them down. "At your age, dragging yourselves into an argument all day long. Look at the time. If you have nothing better to do, go back to your apartments and go to sleep." I touched my nose uncomfortably, casting a sideways glance at Scorching. It was as if she hadn't heard a single word of the loud, trashy neighborhood drama. Her face didn't betray a single micro-expression of emotion. She turned to me calmly. "Well, just remember to change the carbon briquettes." "Thank you. I've caused you a lot of trouble," I muttered. "Luckily, it won't be for very long. Otherwise, as a grown man, this would be entirely too embarrassing." Scorching didn't consider it a hassle at all. She simply nodded once, turned on her heel, and walked away. I shut the door behind her and let out a long, heavy breath. This completely unfamiliar, raw environment was suffocating. I still couldn't get used to it. It was just too damn uncomfortable. Stretching my stiff arms, I let out a massive sigh. My feet gave out, and my sneakers fell into a messy heap on the floor. I threw myself face first onto the bed, burying my entire body deep under the heavy blankets. By the third morning of living in this collective compound, the exact same routine played out. Early in the morning, I was violently shaken awake by the external racket. Doors slamming, women screaming, and parents loudly scolding their crying kids. The boisterous, echoing greetings of people passing each other in the halls flooded straight into my aching head. It gave me the chaotic illusion of sleeping in the middle of a crowded street market. Just as I was about to yank the quilt over my face to force myself back to sleep, a sharp knock rattled the front door. I let out a massive yawn. With my eyes half closed, I dragged my feet, shuffling my slippers across the floor to pull the door open. Scorching was standing outside in full military uniform, holding a packed breakfast container. I made a desperate effort to blink open my heavily swollen, sleepy eyes, mumbled a single slurred word, "Go," and immediately turned around, shuffling right back into the bedroom. I left the front door wide open, completely exposed, and threw myself straight back onto the mattress to resume my dream. Scorching Huan stood frozen in the doorway, left holding the tiffin box. When I came by yesterday, Yu Chen also slept straight through till midday. It seems this breakfast is entirely unnecessary. But since she had already gone through the trouble of bringing it, she figured she might as well carry it inside. As she passed the entrance of my bedroom, she caught sight of my open suitcase sprawled across the floor. The clothes inside were completely piled into a disorganized, messy mountain, surrounded by an array of random cosmetic jars and medicinal bottles she couldn't identify. This suitcase is a complete chaotic disaster. That was her very first thought. Then she looked down and saw my slippers kicked off haphazardly, lying miles apart from each other on the floor. She quietly stepped into the bedroom, picked up both slippers, and aligned them perfectly parallel next to the edge of the bed. Yu Chen is entirely too carefree, she thought, shaking her head at the sleeping giant buried beneath the sheets. He didn't even bother to shut the door behind him before going right back to sleep, Scorching Huan muttered, standing completely frozen in the wide-open doorway. She shook her head, an expression of genuine concern tightly gripping her features. "I'm leaving the food on the table outside," she called out, her voice flat, clear, and cutting sharply through the empty, quiet apartment. "When you actually decide to wake up, make sure you heat it up before eating. Otherwise, just wait until midday when I bring your lunch." She waited for a beat, but the only response she got from the bedroom was the sound of heavy, undisturbed breathing. Rubbing her temples with a sharp sigh, she thought, "Forget it. Why am I wasting my breath arguing with someone who is fast asleep? He can't even hear me." She hesitated a few times in the doorway, preparing to head out for her morning duties. But before she fully stepped away, she considerately walked over to my coal stove and expertly swapped out the dying briquette for a fresh one, ensuring the room wouldn't freeze over while I slept. Outside the building, the morning sun was just starting to bake the concrete, and the base gossip was already running at full throttle. "You know, I sent my kid off to school early this morning and caught myself chatting with one of the orderlies. Don't look at him like he's some refined city boy. The guy was raised in a textbook remote dirt poor village. But when he was away studying at the university in the capital, his family actually rented an entire house off campus for him and hired a maid to wait on him hand and foot." Seriously? No wonder a grown man looks like he has such thin, delicate skin, just like a little girl. He's a total capitalist young master. Exactly. He even hired a nanny. Nannies are incredibly expensive, aren't they? Oh, absolutely. I heard from the neighbors that he doesn't know how to cook a single meal or even wash his own rags. His family was terrified the precious boy wouldn't be able to survive on his own. In his household, it's nothing but older sisters, and he's the only male. Plus, he actually made it into a university, so they completely spoiled him rotten. It's no surprise. I was wondering why Commander Song drags herself over here every single day to drop off food. It looks like she knows the truth too. This kid doesn't know how to cook. If someone didn't drop meals right into his mouth, he'd literally starve to death in a week. You're hilarious, but it's true. Last night when I was heading back from my early morning drills, I caught him trying to wash clothes by the public tap. What do you guys know? I went over to wash a few rags myself and tried talking to him. Let me tell you, that wasn't washing. The kid dumped a ridiculous amount of detergent into the basin. The whole thing was just an exploding mountain of foam, and then he just pulled the clothes straight out without even rinsing them properly. What an absolute waste of soap. There's no nanny out here to wipe his nose, so he's forced to do it himself. The fact that these two want a divorce isn't without reason. I've never in my life seen a rural kid act like this. What village child isn't out in the fields following their parents by the age of 5 or 6? Who the hell is like him? He's a full-grown university student and still needs a babysitter. Look at his hands, strictly a writer's hands, completely different from ours that do real, honest work. You have to admit though, he is incredibly good looking. Sure, but what's the damn use of being handsome? He doesn't know how to do a single thing. He's completely useless around the house. If you ask me, it's better if they just get the divorce over with. Commander Song goes out on active missions and doesn't return home for 10 or 15 days at a time. When she comes back, she needs a partner, not a doll to look at. The kid is pretty, sure, but living like this is just a disaster.
While the vicious chimes of the neighborhood gossip intensified, mutating into wilder versions across every floor, I, the oblivious target of their breakdown, was still dead to the world. By the time I finally rolled out of bed, it was already past 11 a.m. Moving with my usual lazy cadence, I picked up my wash basin and toiletries and strolled down to the public laundry area to wash my face. As I brushed past a few of the resident wives, the glares they directed at me felt stranger and tighter than usual, but I didn't care enough to dissect their expressions. Instead, I simply flashed a loose, polite smile at every single person who stared. Why are they looking at me like that? How bizarre. Thank goodness I'm not antisocial, otherwise this suffocating atmosphere would be unlivable.
Back in my room, I caught sight of the tiffin container sitting on the table, and my mind instantly went blank. Wait, Sung Xing Huan came by this morning? I smacked my own forehead in sheer disbelief. What the hell did I do? Heaven help me. I had literally left the base commander standing at my door like a delivery person while I bolted back to bed for a nap. If it weren't for the container staring me in the face, the memory would have been completely wiped. I cracked open the lid. Ugh, great. Today it's porridge, but it looks like coarse cracked cornmeal mixed with some heavy grains, paired with a side of standard pickled vegetables. And of course, steamed buns. Buns again! This is the third damn day. Every single meal in this place consisted of heavy northern flour staples. If I kept shoving these buns down my throat, I was going to turn into a giant steamed roll myself. I stared down at the breakfast, my stomach growling fiercely. I was starving, but it wasn't just a physical hunger. My mouth was entirely craving actual flavor, and the thought of choking down dry flour left me feeling completely empty inside. After hesitating for a long moment, I slammed the lid shut. Forget it, better not. As it turned out, Sung Xing Huan must have been swamped with an urgent military operation today. She didn't show her face at noon, and she never came by in the evening either. The sudden absence caught me off guard, but I quickly checked my entitlement. Having food delivered to my door was a generous courtesy. Her not showing up wasn't a crime. I had been eating and living here entirely for free these past few days, which was already a massive favor. At lunchtime, I manually heated up the morning's leftover corn porridge using a makeshift double boiler over the coal stove, choked down a few random bites, and spent the rest of the day sitting on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the peeling walls. No smartphone, no television, no friends, no books. There wasn't a single shred of entertainment available in this primitive outpost. Even though I had mostly adapted to being transported into this world by now, this level of sheer isolation was profoundly, brutally boring. I spent the next several hours trapped in my own head, questioning the entire trajectory of my life without putting a single foot outside the door. When my body grew stiff, I lay down. When my throat felt parched, I drank water. When the boredom made my eyes heavy, I slept. It was well past midnight when a sharp, violent racket broke through my light slumber. The furious screams of a man and the high-pitched screeching of a woman, accompanied by the desperate wailing of young children, flooded straight into my room. I bolted upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs, initially thinking it was just a vivid nightmare. But the raw, echoing screeching outside continued without a break. Completely awake now, I pulled open my door and stepped into the corridor. The third-floor hallway was already packed with residents poking their heads out, looking on with a mix of helplessness and irritation. The moment my door clicked open, a neighbor turned and waved me enthusiastically. "Brother, did the racket wake you up too? It's coming from Company Commander Zhou's quarters. The woman screaming her head off is his wife, Liu Chunhua. She just arrived from the rural village a few days ago to join the military housing. And let me tell you, her temper is an absolute nightmare. She doesn't stop for a single second, always looking for a reason to pick a fight with Commander Zhou. I don't even know what triggered her crazy streak tonight." I looked around the BIM hallway. A few soldiers were muttering under their breaths, visibly disgusted. They won't even let a man sleep at night. Some of us have drills at 0500. Others stood there with a glint of pure amusement in their eyes, thoroughly enjoying the trashy domestic drama unfolding in front of them, while small clusters of 2 or 3 wives huddled together, whispering furiously. I stood there quietly, my hand casually resting inside my jacket pocket, my fingers brushing against a stray metal pin I had picked up somewhere during the day. Right at that moment, the door to Zou's apartment flew open. Liu Chunhua violently shoved her two sobbing, terrified children out into the cold corridor. She spun around on her heel, pointing a trembling, furious finger at the man inside the apartment, unleashing a torrent of screeching insults. "I just explained it to you, you psycho!" Zhou Yanggang's exhausted, desperate voice boomed from inside the room. "I don't even know the woman. She literally just stopped me on the street to ask for directions. Aren't you even a little bit ashamed of yourself, throwing a massive, embarrassing tantrum like this over nothing?" I don't know which specific word hit Liu Chunhua's hair-trigger temper, but she instantly morphed into a literal fury. She launched forward, her nails clawing wildly at his face. Zhou Yanggong felt a sharp, burning sting rip across his cheek, and he instinctively raised his heavy arms to block her assault, accidentally knocking her back.
"You're hitting me over another woman. You're actually hitting me. Today you were smiling and laughing with her, and now you have the nerve to say I'm embarrassing you, Zhou Yanggong? Your old lady is going to tear you apart." Liu Chunhua lunged forward, using her hands and feet to wild effect, swinging blindly left and right. Zhou Yanggong's own temper ignited, completely fed up. Both of them grappled furiously, dragging their chaotic brawl straight back inside the apartment. The crowd of onlookers stood frozen, utterly bewildered, before a few soldiers rushed in to pry them apart. But they heavily underestimated Liu Chunhua. Fueled by raw, country-bred fury, the soldiers couldn't budge her. Absolute chaos weaponized the narrow hallway. I stood there watching the violence escalate by the second. Out in the corridor, the two kids, whom a well-meaning neighbor was trying to shield, were wailing louder and louder. The sheer noise was suffocating. My head felt like it was going to explode. On top of that, I studied the woman. She was dangerously hyperventilating, her eyes completely bloodshot. At this rate, with her temper triggering a massive spike, wasn't her blood pressure going to blow a fuse right in her brain? Without wasting another second, I straightened the metal pin I had kept inside my pocket. I stepped forward, grabbed the screaming woman firmly by the shoulders, and yanked her backward with absolute precision. Caught off balance by the sudden momentum, Liu Chunhua stumbled back a step, breaking her grip on her husband. Capitalizing on her split second of utter confusion, I drove the metal pin straight into a precise acupressure point on her upper torso. Liu Chunhua instantly froze, a wave of sudden numbness washing through her limbs as her strength vanished. I followed up with a second rapid puncture. Within seconds, the manic tension locked in her face began to unravel, melting into a deep, heavy drowsiness. I knew the signs. Following a massive spike of adrenaline and rage, the sudden drop would knock her out cold. I supported her weight, easily guiding her back inside the apartment and laying her down onto the sofa. She drifted into a deep sleep almost instantly. The entire intervention took mere seconds, executed with absolute clinical fluidness. Behind me, the crowd of onlookers stood with their mouths hanging wide open. What the hell just happened? What did Commander Son's new husband do to her? Meanwhile, Son Qinghuan had just returned from an exhausting, late-night mission. As she stepped out of her vehicle, a sudden thought struck her. I didn't bring Ah Chen his dinner today. He'll have to navigate his way to the mess hall alone. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the unbidden concern. I've only been delivering his meals for 3 days, and I'm already forming a habit. Ah Chen is a grown man. He's not going to starve to death. Before she could even unlock her front door, frantic footsteps rattled up the stairs. An orderly panted heavily, his face pale. "Commander Son, something terrible happened. Over at the dormitory building, Company Commander Zhu and his wife got into a massive brawl, and brother-in-law got dragged right into the middle of it." "What did you say?" Son Qinghuan's cold facade cracked. Ah Chen voluntarily jumping into a domestic dispute?
Brother-in-law did something to Company Commander Zhu's wife. She suddenly collapsed into a deep sleep and won't respond to anyone. The women in the building panicked and rushed her over to the military hospital to get examined. The 2 kids are crying uncontrollably, and Commander Zhu is also at the hospital getting his face patched up. The whole thing has blown up. Even the brigade commander has been notified. Son Qinghuan's blood ran cold. If Zhu Yonggang couldn't manage his own domestic life, that was one thing. But dragging an innocent civilian guest into his mess was entirely unacceptable. Inside the small, sterile examination room of the military hospital, the 2 kids sat quietly on a wooden bench, slowly sipping warm water given to them by a sympathetic nurse. Across the room, Commander Zhu sat on an examination table, grimacing as the nurse heavily daubed disinfectant over the deep, jagged scratches tearing across his face and neck. He kept his fists clenched in absolute silence. On the nearby hospital bed lay Liu Chunhua, still dead to the world. Seeing the high-ranking officers and a crowd of curious neighbors flooding into the clinic, Zhu Yonggang lowered his head, completely humiliated, unable to utter a single word. I, on the other hand, was leaning casually against the stark white wall. My hands were shoved deep into my tracksuit pockets, my posture loose, relaxed, and entirely unbothered. A faint knowing smirk played on my lips, though the sheer, calculated coldness in my eyes dissected every single person walking through the door.
Commander San is here," someone yelled from the doorway. I turned my head. San Qinghuan was rushing into the clinic, her hair still damp from a hurried shower. She had clearly thrown her uniform on in a panic, yet even in her rushed state, her stark, commanding beauty stood out effortlessly against the sterile backdrop of the hospital, drawing every eye in the room. The moment her gaze swept the clinic, she locked onto me standing safely by the wall. She marched over, her boots clicking sharply against the tile. "What happened?" I caught the heavy undercurrent of tightly suppressed anger in her voice, but before I could even open my mouth to explain, her eyes scanned me up and down. "Are you hurt?" Looking at this fierce woman whose eyes were suddenly completely consumed with naked worry for me, I found myself momentarily speechless. I had expected a lecture or a military reprimand for causing a scene. An older officer standing nearby cleared his throat, his face incredibly stern. "Commander San, what exactly is going on here? Liu Chunhua is lying completely unconscious on that bed. Can't you see that? Captain Zhou's face is torn to shreds. Can't you see that either? You step into a medical emergency and you have only eyes for this boy standing perfectly fine over here?" A neighbor woman chimed in, her voice trembling slightly. "Commander, sister-in-law Chunhua still hasn't woken up. Back there in the hallway, brother-in-law suddenly produced a sharp needle and stabbed her with it a couple of times before carrying her inside. When we followed them in, she was completely unresponsive. It sends a chill right down my spine. A refined, quiet boy like him dropping a grown woman out of nowhere without anyone even noticing how he did it. It's terrifying. I saw the whole thing." San Qinghuan shifted her weight, stepping closer to me, her aura hardening defensively. Captain Zhou and his wife were locked in a highly volatile physical altercation. His wife's blood pressure was dangerously elevated. Her face was flush purple and her eyes were heavily bloodshotted. I feared the sheer rage would cause a cerebral hemorrhage, a blown blood vessel in her brain. So I utilized basic acupressure punctures to forcibly sedate her system. It calmed her heart rate. She will wake up perfectly fine once the exhaustion wears off. I happen to possess a fair amount of medical knowledge. My calm, clinical explanation echoed through the quiet clinic. The surrounding officers and neighbors exchanged stunned, bewildered glances. The brigade commander, Zhang Ongu, who had rushed over the moment the alarm was raised along with his wife, Lan Mei, stepped into the center of the room. He glared at the injured captain. "Zhou Yanggang, it's your family causing a circus again. What is it this time?" "She's being completely irrational, Commander," Zhou Yanggang burst out, his voice cracking with frustration. "Sister-in-law, I don't mean to complain, but Chunhua traveled thousands of miles from the village to be here. I know being a military wife isn't easy, but how am I supposed to reason with her?
Today, a random civilian woman stopped me to ask for directions. We exchanged exactly 2 sentences and she insists I'm having an affair. Tell me, how am I supposed to yield to that kind of insanity? Right at that moment, the base doctor walked out from the inner office holding a chart. He looked up at the crowd. Lu Chunhua is indeed just sleeping soundly. Her vitals are stabilizing and she'll wake up naturally in a little while. However, her blood pressure readings are remarkably high. She needs to be incredibly careful normally and avoid violent emotional triggers. A collective gasp rippled through the room. It was exactly as I had diagnosed. With just a generic metal pin and a couple of quick pricks, this city boy had not only completely diffused a violent domestic riot, but he had also accurately diagnosed a hidden dangerous medical condition on site. It was absolutely incredible. The stares directed at me instantly shifted from fearful suspicion to profound, wide-eyed admiration. I let out a mild, polite cough, keeping my mouth shut, thoroughly amused by their sudden shift. Let them treat it like some miracle. I had been drilled in the intricate arts of traditional Chinese medicine since I was 3 years old. A textbook case of hypertensive rage like this was child's play. How could I not resolve it with ease? All right, since the medical emergency is resolved, everyone clear out. Go back to your quarters, the brigade commander ordered, waving his hand. The crisis is over. Everyone leave. By the time I finally stepped out of the military hospital, it was long past night. It was already 2 a.m. A biting, freezing desert wind swept across the compound, and the light drizzle had begun to fall. I instantly began violently shivering, my arms wrapping tightly around me. In my haste to stop the fight, I'd bolted out of the room with only one sleeve of my pajama jacket properly thrown in. Before I could even complain about the freezing cold, San King Huan stepped up beside me. Without a word, she wrapped her own thick, heavy military greatcoat securely around my trembling shoulders. I stood there on the hospital steps, completely stunned by the sudden warmth.
I was wondering where the hell you suddenly produce a second military coat from, I muttered, looking at her. You're barely wearing anything yourself. I just borrowed this one from a doctor on duty, Sun Ching Huan replied, her voice steady against the wind. Just remember to return it tomorrow. I took the thick coat and slipped my arms into it, casting a sideways glance at the woman walking parallel to me. The brilliant, stark glare of the street lamp illuminated her profile, casting a sudden, unexpected touch of softness over her usually freezing features. Thanks, I said quietly. This wife of convenience was full of surprises. From the military clinic back to the family housing complex, there was still a significant walk ahead of us, and navigating the gravel path at 2 a.m. in pajamas was definitely a bizarre experience. Yu Chen, let's talk for a moment, Sun Ching Huan said smoothly. All right, what's on your mind? Aren't you a student of Western medicine? She asked, her sharp eyes fixing on me. How is it that you know so much about the human body's intricate acupressure points? I started studying traditional Chinese medicine when I was 3 years old, I explained, pulling the collar of the heavy coat up. Western medicine is just what I chose for my university degree. I didn't expect you to be so incredibly skilled, she noted, a hint of genuine respect slipping into her tone. By the way, there's something else. Next time, don't ever open your front door before you are completely fully awake. Leaving it wide open like you did this morning. Well, I obviously only did that because I knew this is a strictly secure military zone. There's no real danger out here. And frankly, outside of you, nobody else has any business coming to look for me. Relax, it won't happen again. I was just completely drugged with sleep. My brain figured I was back in my own apartment, so I just moved on pure inertia and pulled the door open without thinking. I see. She quieted down for a few paces, the sound of our boots crunching on the dirt road. Then, Ah Chen, what exactly do you think of me? The sudden, deeply personal question caught me completely off guard, making my heart skip a frantic beat. The solitary street lamp elongated our shadows across the sand, and her sharp, cold military edges seemed to completely melt under the dim nightlight, making her look profoundly warmer, almost vulnerable. I scratched my head, opting for absolute honesty. To be fair, you're an incredibly good person. You're upright, attentive, and fiercely responsible. You're an excellent regiment commander, and
You're a really good comrade." The second the word comrade left my mouth, a sharp wave of regret hit me. What a stupid thing to say. We were legally husband and wife right now, even if it was a total accident, and I just called her a comrade. But looking back over the last few days, she had tracked down my lost luggage, given me her own warm coat, helped me set up my stove, and hand-delivered my meals every single day. Even when I showed up with nothing but demands for a divorce, she had never once thrown a temper tantrum or given me a bitter look. If it had been any other woman replaced at the altar without her knowledge, only for the stranger to hunt her down to the edge of the country demanding a split, she would have burned the place down. "King Huan, you're wonderful, truly," I added, my tone softening. "But this marriage is nothing but a freak misunderstanding. I don't want to hold your life back, and I certainly don't want to just settle for a forced arrangement. Since I was a kid, my family pampered me. I can't handle primitive hardships, and I fit into this harsh border life even less. I want to go back to the capital, focus entirely on my career, and live a quiet, comfortable life." "I know," she said quietly, her eyes staring at the dark horizon. "I've already pushed the paperwork through to accelerate the divorce process. The higher-ups will approve it within the next few days." Hearing that, a sudden wave of immense relief washed over me, but right on its heels came an inexplicable, strange, hollow emptiness. By the time we finally crossed the threshold of the military housing building, it was well past midnight. Just as I reached out to unlock my door, her voice stopped me. "Yu Chen." I turned around. "Thank you for today," she said sincerely. "If it weren't for your quick intervention, the situation with Officer Zhou and his wife would have ended in an absolute tragedy." "It was nothing. I'm a doctor." I flashed a small smile. I couldn't just stand by and watch someone blow a blood vessel. I pushed the door open and stepped into the quiet apartment. I threw myself on the bed, tossing and turning for hours, completely unable to drift off to sleep. My mind was racing. The chaotic scene with Captain Zhou's wife was still fresh, but it had unlocked a darker, uglier memory. That idiot Ui who stole my identity to marry King Huan before committing suicide over that manipulative, educated youth girl sent to the countryside. Ui had been an absolute fool, completely played and destroyed by a woman who only used him to escape hard labor. Even after she married someone else, she kept seducing him, got pregnant, blamed it on him, and when her back was against the wall, she dragged him straight into a river to drown. She was fished out alive, and right now she was sitting safely behind bars. But as I stared at the dark ceiling, my eyes grew entirely cold. That account wasn't settled yet. Ruining a military marriage is a serious illegal offense. That vile woman hadn't just destroyed Ui, the fool. Her disgusting scheme had almost entirely ruined San King Huan's spotless reputation, her career trajectory, and her entire future. I couldn't stomach the thought of her sitting comfortably in a cell serving a standard sentence while King Huan carried the scars. Letting her off with just prison time wasn't nearly enough. The next morning, for the first time since I arrived at the base, I didn't sleep in late. I was wide awake, my mind perfectly sharp as I sought out the right authority. "Captain, this is the exact situation," I said, laying out the legal facts with clinical precision. "Are you saying that educated youth intentionally seduced Ui from the very beginning, stole his money, and ultimately drove him to suicide?" "Yes," I replied, my voice hard and unyielding. She couldn't stomach the harsh reality of rural labor. She wanted a long-term financial piggy bank, and Ui was completely naive. She manipulated him at her own whim. Even though Ui is dead, she must pay the full price for destroying a military marriage. She needs the maximum sentence she deserves. The captain didn't hesitate. He immediately ordered the old case to be reopened. Upon digging deeper, the investigators discovered that the woman wasn't even keeping her head down in prison. She was actively defaming other inmates and desperately trying to pull strings through old connections to secure an early release. But with concrete, irrefutable evidence, alongside the original reduction of sentence documents and the victim impact statements that King Huan provided, the court hammered her. They officially extended her sentence. She would spend the rest of her miserable life rotting behind bars, paying for her crimes. In the end, evil finally got what it deserved. When the news filtered back to the barracks, a collective sigh of relief swept through the entire regiment for King Huan. Even the neighborhood wives, who had spent days tearing me apart over the public sinks, completely changed their tune. That exact midday, Son King Huan walked into the room, placed the official divorce approval document flat on the table in front of me, and silently extended a pen. "It's already approved," she said softly, her eyes unreadable. "Sign it." I stared down at the bold word divorce stamped at the top of the paper. My fingers wrapped around the pen, but they froze, completely paralyzed for a long, heavy moment. This was exactly what I dragged myself across the country for. This was what I demanded from the very first second I arrived. But now that the moment was staring me in the face, I couldn't force myself to write a single letter. The memories of the past few days suddenly rushed into my mind like a flash flood. I remembered her stepping out of the military vehicle in the scorching desert, the way she purposely slowed the car so I could sleep peacefully in the passenger seat, the quiet moments in the mess hall when she silently ate the food I pushed her way, and the freezing night when she lit my stove and quietly aligned my scattered slippers by the bed. She had never once forced me into anything. She respected my choices, accommodated my fragile city habits, and had silently noticed, without me ever saying a word, that I absolutely detested flour-based staples and loathed making a public spectacle of myself during morning drills. I dropped the pen. I looked up into her cold, beautiful eyes. "King Huan, what if we don't divorce?" She blinked, completely stunned. "What did you just say?" "I said, let's not divorce," I replied, my voice steady, strict of all its usual careless sarcasm. Before this, I was a complete fool. I was entirely consumed with my own comfort, my own wealth, and my own peaceful life. I was completely blind to how incredibly wonderful the person standing right beside me. "You are a good woman, King Huan. You deserve to be treated with absolute seriousness. Maybe this accidental marriage wasn't a cruel trap of fate after all. Maybe it was a gift." Son King Huan stared at me, her throat tightening. "But didn't you say you can't handle hardships? You said you wanted to run back to the capital. The conditions here on the border are brutal, Yu Chen. I am an active officer. I have missions that drag me away for months at a time."
"I can learn," I interrupted, stepping closer until the space between us vanished. "I can learn how to cook northern food, learn how to scrub clothes properly, learn how to manage those messy charcoal briquettes. I can take a permanent position at the military hospital as a doctor and personally heal your old combat injuries. I can stay right here, wait for you to return from your deployments, and have hot soup ready for you. I can endure any hardship this desert throws at me, as long as I'm standing right next to you." Unbeknownst to us, a massive crowd of soldiers and neighborhood wives had quietly gathered outside the open doorway. The second the words left my mouth, a loud cheer erupted. "Good boy! I knew you were a sensible man," Aunt Zan yelled from the front, wiping a dramatic tear. "I've been saying it all along. These two kids are a match made in heaven." Instead of signing the divorce papers, I reached out, grabbed Son King Huan's hand, and squeezed it tightly. Amid the deafening applause and rowdy whistling of the entire corridor, I looked at her and smiled. "Come on, let's go file the marriage report and register all over again. But this time, it's entirely me, Yu Chen, who wholeheartedly wants to marry Son King Huan." King Huan looked at our joined hands, then up at my face, and a brilliant, radiant smile finally broke across her beautiful features. In the days that followed, I truly began to learn how to live out here step by step, completely trading my pampered past for a real future by her side. I learned how to cook directly from the brigade commander's wife, Lan Mei. At the very beginning, I messed up every single dish. The food was either completely burnt to a crisp or turned out entirely bland and tasteless. I couldn't help but laugh at my own pathetic attempts. This disaster is definitely not fit for human consumption. "Who says it's not fit to eat?" Son King Huan countered gently, looking at the messy plate. "As long as it's something you cooked, even if it tastes terrible, I'll eat every single bite."
Hearing that made me push myself even harder. I didn't just learn how to cook northern dishes. I also mastered scrubbing my own laundry, expert handling of the coal briquettes, and keeping our small apartment completely spotless. Sung-Ching Hwan watched me organize a space one evening, a soft look in her eyes. "You're getting more and more skilled by the day, Yu Chen. Our little household is finally starting to feel solid." I reached out and took her hand. "It's all for you, Ching Hwan. I want to give you a stable, real home." Shortly after, I officially joined the staff at the military hospital. I focused entirely on treating a wide range of chronic pain and training injuries by combining the absolute best of traditional and Western medicine, while continuously refining my specialized medicinal oils. Once, a young soldier tore a muscle during a brutal training drill. The second I applied my specialty oil to the injury, the tight frown on his face instantly unraveled. He looked up at me, beaming. "Dr. Yui, this medicinal oil of yours is absolute magic." "As long as it helps you guys heal, that's all that matters," I smiled. Whether it was fresh training injuries or old stubborn aches from years on the border, a quick application brought immediate relief. Before long, I became everyone's go-to doctor on base. I eventually brought my family out to the border for a visit. The moment my mother and sisters laid eyes on Sung-Ching Hwan, they grabbed her hands tightly and absolutely refused to let go. "This boy has truly struck gold," my mother wept tears of joy. "Ching Hwan is an incredible woman, Ah Chen. You must treat her with absolute devotion. Seeing the two of you living here so securely, our restless, worried hearts can finally be at peace." Even Yui Ai's grieving family made a special trip to the base just to personally apologize to me. The old village chief took my hand, his face etched with deep sorrow. "Son, back then, we were completely blinded by pressure. We let that bastard steal your registry page and bound the wrong people together. These past 2 years have been an anchor of pure guilt in our hearts. Please, don't hold a grudge against us." "Theos, I don't blame you. The person responsible is gone, and the old grudges have dissolved into the dirt. Rest easy. I will take care of Ching Hwan. Both in Yui Ai's memory and in my own name, I will fiercely protect this home." 8 months after my arrival, Sung-Ching Hwan and I held a simple, intimate wedding right inside the barracks. There was no grand, extravagant ceremony, just our trusted comrades, colleagues, and family filling the courtyard, eating, drinking, and laughing with a rowdy, boisterous energy that felt exactly like a chaotic New Year celebration. Sung-Ching Hwan, dressed immaculately in her crisp military uniform, stood proudly by my side. Her eyes were completely filled with naked tenderness as I reached out, took her hand, and spoke over the roaring blessings of the crowd. "Before I came here, I thought a piece of marriage paperwork was nothing but a suffocating, miserable trap. But now, I know it is the most precious stroke of luck in my entire life, Sung-Ching Hwan. For the rest of our days, I will take care of you, while you take care of our homeland. We will never be parted." "Good," she whispered, her smile radiant. Over the years, I became a foundational pillar of the military hospital, healing countless border soldiers. My custom medicinal oils and premium sunscreens underwent massive upgrades and clinical testing. They weren't just utilized by the active regiments anymore, but ended up helping thousands of local civilian families cure their severe sun-damaged skin conditions. Sung-Ching Hwan's military career also flourished seamlessly. She received a major promotion and the permanent transfer to the High Command Military District back in the capital. I accompanied her back to the city without a second thought, instantly securing a medical position at the capital's top military hospital. Eventually, we had an adorable, bright little boy. On the weekends, we'd pack up the car and take the kid over to visit their grandparents, filling the old house with lively, boisterous energy. Every now and then, my mind would drift back to that very first afternoon on the border, when I had walked for 4 agonizing hours through the scorching desert, my heart completely filled with bitter, desperate ideas of demanding a divorce. Fate truly was a magnificent, unpredictable thing. That accidental wedding certificate that I had loathed with every fiber of my being ended up leading me straight to the absolute love of my life. It turned out that the best kind of life wasn't about having everything handed to you on a silver platter or enjoying mindless, effortless luxury. It was about having a magnificent person worthy of your protection, a career worthy of your devotion, and a home overflowing with warmth and chaotic laughter. Sung Ching-hwan leaned back against the window frame of our capital apartment, quietly watching the crimson sunset bleed across the city skyline. Yu Chen, thank you for staying with me. Who should be thanking whom here? I chuckled, stepping up behind her and wrapping my arms around her waist. It's me. You are the one who made me find real joy in this world. You gave me a complete, meaningful life. You must be completely exhausted from command today. Drink some warm water first. I already prepared that light soup you love. She turned in my arms, looking surprised. How did you know I wanted soup today? Ever since I met you, haven't you always craved something clean and light after a long deployment? I remember every single detail. Come on, try it quickly. This time, I swear it didn't burn. It tastes a million times better than my last attempt. Our brilliant Dr. Yu is not only a genius at medicine now, but his cooking is getting remarkably good, she teased, taking a sip. Of course, I grinned, kissing her forehead. Look whose husband I am. You know, you're getting entirely too clingy as you get older, she laughed softly, resting her chin on my chest. Our son is exactly like you, spoiled and always complaining. I only cling to you, I muttered shamelessly, and the kid takes after me. He only clings to his mom. Don't spout nonsense in front of the child, she chided, a sweet, flushing smile breaking across her face. Staring down at her beautiful, softened expression, I couldn't help but remember those early, primitive days when I first arrived at that desolate desert outpost. Back then, my single, desperate goal was to run away from her as fast as my feet could carry me. Yet now, I was perfectly, entirely willing to spend the rest of my existence by her side. Even to me, it felt utterly incredible. What are you thinking about so deeply? She asked, tracing my jawline. I'm thinking about when I first landed at your barracks. I was so incredibly lazy and arrogant. All I wanted to do was bolt. What a complete idiot I was. Back then, you used to change out my charcoal briquettes and build my stove for me, and I just took it all for granted. To be honest, I also thought a pampered young master like you wouldn't last a single week, she confessed with a quiet laugh. You went to bed early, you refused to get up for morning drills, you wouldn't touch our coarse northern noodles, and you slept straight through until midday. I was genuinely worried about how you were going to survive out there. But it was only because you looked after me so well, I smiled, squeezing her tighter against the evening chill. You were always so sensitive to noise, Song King-hwan murmured, her eyes tracing the familiar lines of my face in the soft morning light. Every single time you came back late, you walked on eggshells, and that midnight when you handled Captain Zhou's massive crisis, the very first thing you did was run straight to me to ask if I was hurt. I am your wife, Yu Chen. Of course, it is my absolute duty to protect you. I smiled, remembering how completely out of my depth I had been back then. That day, you asked me what I thought of you as a person. I told you that you were a good comrade, and the exact second the word left my mouth, I wanted to rip my own tongue out. King Hwan, I never wanted to be just your comrade. I wanted to be the person who walks beside you for the rest of your life. She squeezed my hand, her thumb rubbing against my palm. When I stood in front of you with that unsigned divorce report, my heart was hammering so hard I thought it would burst right out of my chest. I thought you were going to leave. It didn't matter how brutal or unforgiving that desert border was. As long as you were there, I was entirely willing to stay. I told myself I could learn. I could learn to cook, learn to scrub heavy laundry, learn to handle those filthy coal briquettes. I could be a military doctor, taking care of you and the fierce soldiers you protect. And I really had pushed myself to the absolute limit. After that, I spent every spare second learning to cook from sister-in-law Lan Mei. At the beginning, every time I served you the final result, my nerves were completely shot. I'd stand there holding the plate, stammering. King Hwan, try it. If it tastes terrible, I'll throw it out and start over. But you always ate it with a beautiful, radiant smile, telling me it was delicious. You told me it was the most flavorful food you had ever tasted in your life. It was, she insisted, her eyes gleaming. Slowly, I actually got better, I chuckled. From burning the bottom of the pot to completely mastering the ladle, all so that every single time you marched back home from a grueling mission, there would be a steaming hot meal waiting on the table. I dove headfirst into military medicine, using everything I knew to upgrade our custom medicinal oil for deep contusions and training injuries. Every time a batch turned out perfectly, I'd celebrate silently and immediately hand a fresh bottle over to you. I tell you, you have so many old, stubborn injuries from years of brutal training. You have to apply this daily. And then whenever you applied it, she smiled, any injury healed in the blink of an eye. I even formulated that exclusive sunscreen for you, I added, tapping the tip of her nose. The desert winds were entirely too fierce, and the sun was blinding. I made it so your skin would never painfully peel under the heat again. It was the absolute best sunscreen in the entire world, and strictly you were the only one who had it. Every time you went out on a dangerous deployment, I'd rush over. Are you tired? Are you starving? I have hot soup waiting for you on the stove. Knowing you were waiting for me at the end of the road, she whispered, her voice tightening with emotion, made any distance, any grueling exhaustion completely worth it. Dr. Yu, I'm heading out, she said, mimicking her departure routine as she adjusted her uniform. Take care of yourself. I'll be waiting for you at home tonight. Lan Mei's old, teasing voice seemed to echo in my mind from those barracks days. I never in my life imagined our pampered young Master Yu would do all of this for you and for your child. But a man grows up. I could learn anything. Before dragging myself to the border, I was the coddled youngest child of my household, completely spoiled by my older sisters. But now, I was a husband and a father. I had to firmly sustain the weight of this home. Every weekend, we made sure to call back home to my parents. King Huan, my mother's loud and cheerful voice crackled through the receiver line. This boy Yu Chen used to be so incredibly pampered and lazy. It's entirely thanks to you that he's been taught some proper sense. Mom, he's incredibly mature and he loves me very much, Qing Huan would reply, defending me with a soft laugh. The little tyrant of our household has completely transformed into a man utterly crazy for his wife. There really is a perfect match for everyone out there. This massive freak misunderstanding of a wedding had legally bound me to Song King Huan, and it was the greatest, most profound blessing of my entire existence. I was going to treat her with absolute devotion for the rest of our days. I knew it all along, Lan Mei would brag whenever she visited. You two are a match made by heaven itself. Back then, I explicitly advised King Huan to fight for this marriage, but she was as stubborn as a mule. Look at how blissful you are now. See, I wasn't wrong from the beginning, was I? Ah Chen is an incredible boy. Yes, she would say, looking over at me. Yu Chen, did you ever, even for a split second, regret choosing to stay out there with me? She asked tonight, her gaze searching mine. Never, I replied, without a single hint of hesitation. Before I met you, all I wanted was a refined, effortless life of mindless luxury with money that never ended. But now I know that the most beautiful days consist of having you, having our child, and having a real home. You protect our country, King Huan, and I will fiercely protect you. She was the most resilient, unyielding poplar tree in the barren desert, and the most gallant, brilliant commander in the entire barracks. The one magnificent person Yu Chen would guard with every ounce of his strength. An accidental wedding, a destiny bridging 1,000 miles, a sudden encounter on the edge of the world, strictly destined to last a lifetime. From that moment forward, year after year, amidst the loud, beautiful chaos of humanity, I would walk parallel to Song Chung Huan. From our youth to our silver hairs, from our childhood memories to old age, we would never be parted. Now, having officially returned to the capital, we finally had a quiet, small sanctuary that was truly, exclusively our own. There was no more freezing desert sand cutting through the air, and no more suffocating loud gossip echoing from a crowded military compound. Instead, we had a wide open balcony and a warm, incredibly cozy kitchen. Every single piece of furniture had been hand-selected by the two of us together, and our days drifted past with a serene, beautiful tranquility. In the mornings, my eyes always blinked open right before the alarm could even go off. I'd slip out from underneath the heavy quilts with absolute stealth, moving as quietly as a shadow so I wouldn't disrupt Qing Huan while she slept soundly. Our little Nianuan was growing bigger by the day, his tiny legs moving at a frantic pace as his tiny feet went taka-taka-taka across the clean hardwood floors. He'd run straight to the kitchen entrance, grip the door frame with his small hands, and call out in his sweet, high-pitched toddler voice, "Papa!" The sheer innocent sweetness of his voice was enough to melt the coldest heart in existence. While the breakfast sizzled on the stove, I'd turn around, scooping him up to play, laughter bubbling through the room. The brilliant morning sun would stream through the wide glass window, casting its golden warmth over our two silhouettes, one large, one small, in a scene so profoundly peaceful it almost felt surreal. By the time Qing Huan rolled out of bed, she always found the hot, steaming breakfast laid out neatly on the table. She'd sit down, already dressed in her sharp, immaculate military uniform, but the expression locked on her face was entirely soft, warm, and loose. The freezing, unapproachable border commander was completely gone. Sitting across from me was simply my wife. She would eat in a quiet, contented silence, occasionally using her chopsticks to slide a premium choice portion onto my plate, before leaning over to gently feed a bite to Nianuan. A breakfast for three, simple, unpretentious, yet completely overflowing with the comforting warmth of a real home. Once she finished dressing and preparing for command at the headquarters, I always accompanied her all the way to the front door. Standing in the entrance, I'd reach out, carefully adjusting the stiff collar of her military uniform, checking the alignment, and looking up into her eyes. "Be careful out there today," I'd remind her softly. She would turn back on the threshold, a beautiful, radiant smile breaking across her face, and the entire day would instantly light up. My work at the capital's military hospital is hitting a fantastic stride, all thanks to a specialized therapy regimen combining the absolute best of traditional Chinese and Western medicine. Over time, I've managed to become a well-known military doctor throughout the wards. Countless comrades, upon hearing through the grapevine that I excel at treating stubborn training injuries, travel to our clinic expressly to seek me out. I attend to each of them with clinical patients, distributing my upgraded medicinal oil. The recovery results remain flawlessly stable. When the patient load is light, I spend my time organizing medical records in the office or researching brand new physical therapy formulas. My days feel completely full, purposeful, and promising. I am no longer that lazy university graduate who only wanted to coast through life and chase easy money. In the afternoons, the clock hits closing time and I leave work punctually to pick up Nianuan from preschool. The little guy carrying his small backpack breaks into a frantic run the exact second he spots me. He launches his tiny body straight into my arms, instantly bubbling over with enthusiasm as he recounts every single anecdote from kindergarten. On our walk back home, we stop by the market to pick up fresh ingredients, my mind constantly wondering if Qing Huan will make it back in time for dinner tonight, already planning out her absolute favorite dishes. Those old seeds of love that Qing Huan first carried back from the barren desolation of the desert have now sprouted, growing lush and green under the warm capital sun. Whenever Qing Huan manages to get off duty at a normal hour, our small apartment instantly transforms, turning incredibly lively. She settles down in the living room with Nianuan to play with his toys, while I dominate the space in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The steady clinking of utensils paired with the child's bright laughter and her occasional gentle instructions weave together, turning into the most beautiful melody life has to offer. My culinary skills have reached an expert level. I no longer burn the pots and the food never turns out bland. Every single dish is tailored strictly to her taste. She always notes with a soft laugh that my cooking is the best flavor in the entire world. If her schedule demands an extra shift or an urgent mission, Nianuan and I wait for her obediently at home. After bathing the little guy, reading him a bedtime story, and tucking him to sleep, I leave the living room light burning and keep a pot of fresh soup warming on the stove. It doesn't matter how late the clock gets. The exact moment she opens the front door, she's guaranteed a hot, comforting meal. When she collapses onto the sofa, completely drained from command, I quietly sit down right beside her. I hand her the warm soup and gently massage the tension out of her shoulders, listening intently to the minor daily happenings of the barracks. I don't interrupt her train of thought, and I never utter a single complaint. I simply accompany her in the quiet space. The weekends remain our most relaxed, sacred pockets of time. I take Qinghwan and Yanwan out for long strolls through the city park. We sit closely together on a wooden bench, basking in the sunlight and talking about everything and nothing, while watching our boy run wild and chase his own shadow across the green lawn. In those moments, we don't think about military deployments or hospital case files. There is only the two of us and the serene, peaceful present reality. Every now and then, we pack up and travel back to my old hometown. My mother and sisters, seeing our family of three looking so profoundly happy and harmonious, smile endlessly from the moment we arrive, completely refusing to let go of Qinghwan's hand. Thanks to my constant, attentive medical care, Qinghwan's old training injuries rarely ever flare up anymore. As for the premium sun protection balm I formulated exclusively for her, she carries it with her religiously, whether she's heading out for field drills or a major deployment, refusing to switch to any other product. It represents my private, exclusive tenderness that absolutely no one else can match. Watching the soft, deeply content smile in her eyes grow richer by the day fills my heart with a quiet wave of gratitude. I am intensely grateful that I didn't stubbornly sign those papers and give up on us back then. I am grateful that I made the definitive choice to stay right by her side. All those old regrets, frantic enredos, and the chaos of the past have completely disappeared, dissolved entirely by the steady march of time. That extraordinary tranquility that I used to desperately chase after during my youth, now that I finally hold it securely in my own hands, it turns out to be 1,000,000 times more beautiful than I ever imagined. It isn't about grand prosperity, and it certainly isn't about chasing endless wealth. It is strictly about having her parallel to me, watching our child grow and sustaining a complete, warm home. I tighten my arms around her, pulling her closer against my chest as we gaze up together at the countless stars anchoring the night sky. Deep down, I am completely, unshakably certain. Yes, you protect our country, and I will protect you, year after year, without ever letting go. This is our life after returning. Simple, stable, and completely stripped of loud, dramatic stripes, yet it easily eclipses all the fleeting prosperity of the world.